thanks. Hey, Jeremy, thanks very much for joining us on Is This You podcast. I've been really looking forward to hearing your story. It was quite serendipitous actually. You getting in touch because you're on my list of people who I really wanted to get on and talk to, and I was just delaying it a little bit until we got going. But then when you got in touch, I thought, right, there's something going here. So so thank you. Thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, no, pleasure.
So Jeremy, what we do is we're interested in knowing people's stories, where they've had success, what challenges they've faced in their journey. So I don't know if you could share your journey, especially
Talk you through it, yeah?
Yeah, go on. If you could talk me through it, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. Great. Well, I came up to live in Newcastle on Tyne because I got a job a long time ago, back in the mid 80s, in working for Procter and Gamble, selling washing up liquid, basically. And I was working there with a friend, and we really knew that we wanted to try and work for ourselves. Not that we really knew how. And I'd done a very early buy-to-let property before people did buy-to-lets, and the guy I worked on the brand with, Richard Harpin, he also did a buy-to-let, and we thought, this is pretty good. You can buy a house and rent it out, and it pays for itself. That's called a free house. We like that. So we started buying more and more of them, and because we had quite a few of these properties, after a while, we set up a property letting agency before people really just focused on letting very much, to deal with all the problems. And then because we were managing our own, we started managing other people, and that grew into a property letting business. And because we were doing property letting, it went from there. We started doing all sorts of ideas that came to us that were related to that. And we were very active, started all sorts of businesses, managed to get quite a bit of turnover, property repairs, property cleaning, property investment, all sorts of related things. But we didn't really make any money. In fact, we managed to lose quite a bit of money without even realizing it. Such was our tremendous financial control. So we were getting into a bit of a pickle, and I was making. I was operating as a marketing consultant to try and get some cash in to pay for the losses elsewhere, and went and pitched to all the water companies, because we'd started a property repair business, and we discovered it was all about plumbing. And the newly privatized water companies were all trying to think, how do they diversify? And we realized they were looking at plumbing. And we went and said to them, hey, we know a bit about this. Or why don't you give us a consulting contract to tell you whether this is a good idea or not? And one of the water companies said, yeah, that would be quite good. So we looked at their proposal, which was for a standard regional general plumbing business, and said, that's a terrible idea. But a really great idea is to run a national emergency focused, premium priced plumbing business. And that could be really good for you. But the problem you've got is you haven't got any management. Nothing entrepreneurial about you. So you need to get some. As it happens, we have a property repair business called, which at that time was called Fast Fix Plumbing and Heating. And the long and the short of it was, we gave them half the business. We called it a joint venture, and we had a water company partner, and that was really good because then from then on it was their money that we were losing, not ours. And that was the start of the journey as a plumbing emergency business. And then my partner Richard, who ran the business while I was non-exec, moved down to Walsall. And he, over the next 2 years, grew this small loss-making plumbing business into a great big loss-making plumbing business. And then, fortunately, it wasn't our money we were losing. So for the second time, it looked like it was all going to go bang. But that's when the pivot happened. And we spotted there were other small water companies that were offering their customers peace of mind by selling them a warranty against there being a plumbing emergency. And suddenly, with that eureka moment, we started marketing not come and have your plumbing fixed, but have peace of mind, buy a policy, and if you have a plumbing leak, we'll come and fix it, like the AA for the home.
Yeah.
And that worked, and that was transformational. And after that, we invested heavily in getting more and more customers, largely through direct mail to start with, and then signed up other water companies, and then signed up other utilities, and then went international. And in the end, that company got sufficiently large to be a FTSE 100 company. And that's the HomeServe story.
That point when you pivoted there, Jeremy, was that a planned pivot, or was it a case of looking and thinking, right, we need to do something about this here because obviously we're making losses, and how do we get around it?
It was we had to do something different. Until then, we'd just been going faster on rolling out something that didn't have the right economic model.
Right.
And we were looking for ideas. And there would have been lots of ideas. But Richard tested this one, and we tested lots of things on a very small scale. I think the first mailing was 1,000 strong, and it came back with something like 3% return response rate. Well, that might not have seemed too exciting, except that as soon as you got, talking roughly, above a 1% response rate, you were paying out within 12 months. So after that, you could shovel money out the door, and 4 months later, it came back. So it was a mixture of serendipity, but looking for ideas, testing many things, and then spotting when something worked and swinging a big bat at it.
So it must have been. It must have been when when you'd had such a long period of of going at it and working hard and looking at the different, pivoting in different directions, to when you saw that traction take place. It must have been brilliant to think, right, we've cracked it.
Yeah, I mean, there were all the way along the line. You figure it's going to work. You've always got a plan. It was normally how things turned around in 3 months' time when you just tweaked this button and that button. But sometimes if you don't have the model right, it's not going to work. And you've got to look for something more radical and pivot. And that was, I mean, it was still fixing people's pipes. It still required, quality plumbers to turn up, and you had to be able to run the business. So you had to be able to handle a call center, and you had to be able to hire plumbers and motivate them, and you had to be able to, bill people and get the money in, and you had to fix all of that. But in terms of business model, completely different. Changing it from being, let's spend money on marketing, let's spend money on hiring guys and vans, let's spend money on answering calls, let's spend money on making quotes, let's fix things and then send out bills and spend money on trying to collect them. Then changing the same service into one where, will you send us some money in case you have a leak? And if you do have a leak, you have a leak after you've been paid the money up front. And so the cash transformation that involved was extraordinary. But I mean, we didn't sit down and say, we're really clever and we're going to run a warranty business. We absolutely didn't. We saw someone else doing it and we copied it. And I'd say did it better and beat everybody else who tried to do it after that. But we were looking at what worked elsewhere and trying to copy and test it.
Test and copy it, right? Brilliant. And the actual, so the acquisition, how did that come about? Was that, were you actively looking at that point, or did that come out of the blue a little bit?
I think that having reached that scale, the company could have carried on independently. But when the largest private equity business in the world makes a strategic decision that they might like to buy you, that's probably the right time. It was certainly the right. I mean, I was a small shareholder by the time the main exit happened. So different people have different motivations. It was a very big business by then. Employs more than 10,000 people, and frankly, I wouldn't add much value. Wasn't adding much value anymore, so it was sensible for me to not be involved. More particularly, Richard, as chief executive, he is still engaged with it, but there are other things that he wants to do, and I think that sometimes it's not all about the money. You have a life, and sometimes you have other things you want to do, and sometimes they require money or they don't. And I think it's quite good to pivot your own life sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that pivot of your own life, what then? Where did things go after HomeServe?
Well, I was always interested in a whole variety of different things, but commercially, I run a family office now, based on my departure from HomeServe largely. And we have a pretty single-minded focus on trying to. We run a small private equity business, family office. What we're doing is looking for ambitious entrepreneurs who are running their small to medium-sized enterprise, who have achieved profitability, maybe making a few 100,000, and we want to try and provide finance and support to help them on that scale-up journey up to making 5 million. And that's a huge transition that can make the difference between being in a business and achieving your dreams. We are very specialists. We're invested in 7 or 8 businesses now, and looking for others where there's the potential to get to be significantly larger. And I focus on that stage because that's really what I understand. It's going through that particular set of challenges.
And what do you look for? When you're looking for a company or whether it be an individual or a team of people, what is it that you see as the standout? Is there anything in particular, or does it depend on the circumstances?
Well, we're sector agnostic, as we'd say, but we're trying to look at a simple business that you can understand. So I'm not engaged in the tech world. We're not out there trying to find the next unicorn, as many people in venture capital are. We are looking for predictability. So ideally, someone who knows their business, has built it to a certain level, and who now perhaps wants the confidence to take it to the next stage. I think predictability is really important, ambition, but a desire to grow in a way that is sustainable. So we're not looking to try and shovel in a lot of debt. We're not looking to try and achieve an early exit. We're running our own money. We're not a fund that's got to be returned to somebody. We're trying to get aligned with people who want to be forever founders, and that might be so maybe they never need to sell. People think, I must build a business and sell it. No, not necessarily. I was on a 30-year journey. If your business is worth money and is becoming worth more money, and it's what you know how to do, why wouldn't you carry on growing it? If you want to realize some capital, then take some money off, but you can still keep running the business. And people also want to evolve quite often by changing the role that they have, so that they're not maybe they're not working completely flat out. Maybe they really love some aspects. It's the creative side, it's the strategic side, and trying to help them so they've got the management around them that can take the business on for longer and have the role that they want, and frankly achieve the financial potential of their business, and with the consequent benefits for their staff and suppliers and customers.
Yeah.
So it's a growth story, but not one driven by take some money and flip a business. It's talked by creating a partnership with an entrepreneur. Let's go on the journey together.
And are there any particular factors? So you've seen it through yourself and your own journey, and you've seen these other businesses. Are there any standout factors that you see as signs of success? Is there anything that you look for or you've seen that you think these factors give someone the best chance of success?
Yeah. Well, I'd start in a sector with tailwinds, not headwinds. So it's easier to start in a business that is growing and where the market is growing. That helps. And then it is somebody who's shown not what they say they can do, but what they have done, and looking for them to do more of the same thing. Now, this isn't always the case, and you may miss things, but that's probably the most accurate indicator. Somebody who wants to build a long-term sustainable business rather than have unrealistic dreams. People who we like to work with, who want some support, and you only go into business with people who you like, and if they like you, and who you think you can help, and they think you can help. So you've got to have the right type of relationship. It's got very little to do with the legals and the deal that people do. It's because those rarely actually get referred to in my view and experience, although all the lawyers will hate that. It's about trust and a great business model. It's a great business model you want.
Right, yeah.
Often something quite simple where you're doing something a bit better than other people. So I mean, we're involved in different type of businesses, but quite a few retail rollouts where people have perhaps 4 or 5 units, and we perhaps provide some confidence and support and money to go from 5 to 10 to 15. That's pretty dynamic growth. And if you can carry on compounding by doing more of the same thing, more pieces of rice on the chessboard, you're going to build a powerful business, makes good money. Entrepreneur is rewarded. Entrepreneur can grow that a long way. A lot of people can be employed, a lot of taxes can be paid, and that's a pretty satisfying thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. And another area that I know in your life you've taken on some adventure challenges. Is there anything in that you've seen as sort of transferable experiences or lessons that can be learned that you feel could be compared?
I guess you could say one of them is persistence pays. So I was only ever doing, unlike you, I'm no athlete, but I was just doing high level trekking. And the key thing when you're going up a high altitude mountain is to keep going. And I would say that persistence pays is a fundamental characteristic for a successful SME. So to be resilient, to overcome the tough things that come along, and I think that's your mental resilience as well as your physical resilience, and to keep looking for things, because things often do go wrong, but you've just got to keep at it. The solution is probably there if you keep hunting and trying and testing.
Brilliant. Yeah. I've got to say that's that one of the things that I've found that you really do learn when you're on the limit and you're going through these things. You physically, you do realize when you've gone through a similar thing in business that it's just you just keep going, just break things down to those small steps, the small rungs on the ladder that are achievable, and just keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As somebody once said, you just got to keep on running.
Is there anything else at all that you'd like to share that you feel people might like to hear or might gain some inspiration or?
I think it is And I'm not sure, but I think the key thing is if you feel you want to create something in business, then the first thing is you've got to start. You can plan forever, but you have to start. And quite a lot of people who think they want to do it never do, because people exaggerate the risk. And the best laid plans of mice and men, as they say, it's all going to change anyway. So take your idea, get started, then keep working at it. Persistence pays. Try and test. Find the formula that works. Swing a big bat at it, and enjoy it. Because there's wonderful things. Sometimes it's wonderful to not have a boss. And whether you are commercially successful or not, you can look back at your life and say you tried. And I think it can give great satisfaction. And if you're lucky, you'll create something. Maybe it's big, maybe it's not. But if you create something, you're going to feel good about yourself, I think.
Diz, you'll not remember this at all, but there's something that you said to me once that really has come to me quite a few times. We'd grabbed a coffee. I can't remember. Obviously it'll be a long time ago, and I was going through it. I was going through things in the trenches, and you said to me, "Are you enjoying it?" And the reality is, at that point in time, no, I wasn't. And there's quite a few times when I'm doing something that I keep relating back to that point of you saying, "Are you enjoying it?" And it's so you wouldn't have been aware, but that's stuck. Sort of, and it has stuck with me for a long time.
I do think if you do something you enjoy, there's a fair chance you'll be good at it. And if you're good at it, then the rest can come around. So the flip side of that is if you're not happy, change something, quit, leave, try something else. It's life's short. Let's grab every opportunity that's there. I've started all sorts of businesses one way or another, and a great many of them haven't gone very well. But as long as you manage your risk, it's the ones that do work that count. And unless you do some, you are definitely planning to fail.
Yeah. That's a real nugget. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Great.
Well, yeah. So brilliant.
Okay, Phil, that was a
I
pleasure.
really appreciate that, Jeremy. Really, really appreciate your time. And that has been fascinating.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.